Let's start with a man who led during one of the darkest periods in human history, World War II. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, suffered from poliomyelitis. This disease left him permanently paralyzed from the waist down, but if you look at historical footage, you'll barely notice it. That's because his condition was carefully managed and largely hidden from the public. He used leg braces, support from aides, and controlled appearances to maintain the image of strength. Behind the scenes, even simple movement was a challenge. Yet despite this, he led a nation through economic collapse and global war. A man who couldn't stand was standing at the center of world history. He looked young, charismatic, almost invincible. To the world, John F. Kennedy embodied youth, strength, and confidence. But behind that powerful image, his body was fighting a silent battle. He lived with Addison's disease, a rare condition where the body can't produce enough essential hormones. He also endured severe chronic back pain, so intense that even standing for long periods could be a struggle. To get through each day, he relied on a complex regimen of medications, including corticosteroids and powerful painkillers. Yet during the most dangerous moments of the Cold War, he stood before the world with remarkable composure, calm, focused, unshaken. The public saw a symbol of strength. Few knew how much strength it took just to stand there. He led Britain through World War II with fierce confidence, powerful speeches, and unshakable determination. But behind the image of strength, Winston Churchill fought a battle inside his own mind. For years, Churchill struggled with severe depression, something he personally called the black dog. Some days, the weight of it was so heavy that even getting out of bed became difficult. He also suffered from exhaustion, strokes later in life, heart problems, and the effects of heavy alcohol and cigar use. Yet during the darkest moments of the war, when all of Europe seemed close to collapse, Churchill stood in front of millions and spoke with absolute certainty. The world saw courage, but hidden behind the speeches was a man constantly fighting his own darkness. Imagine the President of the United States becoming suddenly unable to fully govern, while the public knows almost nothing about it. That's exactly what happened to Woodrow Wilson on October 2nd, 1919. He suffered a devastating stroke. The stroke left him partially paralyzed, weakened his vision, and dramatically reduced his ability to work. For months, the true severity of his condition was hidden from the American public. His wife, Edith Wilson, began controlling access to him, reviewing documents, and deciding which matters reached the president. Some historians later called her the unofficial first female president. The crisis also exposed a dangerous weakness in the Constitution. What happens if a president becomes too sick to govern? That question eventually helped inspire the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution decades later. Woodrow Wilson's presidency became one of the most dramatic examples of how a leader's hidden health can shape the fate of nations. Imagine becoming king when speaking itself feels impossible. That was the struggle of King George VI. Long before he wore the crown, he suffered from a severe stammer. Simple conversations were painful. Public speeches were terrifying. Every word felt like a fight. But in 1936, after his brother suddenly gave up the throne, Albert became King George VI. Now the man who feared speaking had to address an entire nation. At the worst possible moment. World War II was beginning. Britain needed confidence, needed leadership, needed a voice. Determined not to fail, George VI worked for years with speech therapist Lionel Logue. The progress was slow, frustrating, sometimes humiliating, but he refused to quit. And gradually, the king who once struggled to finish sentences began delivering speeches that inspired millions.